Welcome, traveller, to this sanctuary of silence and starlight. Before we begin our journey into the vast, uncharted waters of the mind, I invite you to find a place of absolute comfort. Let your body sink deeply into the surface beneath you, feeling the gentle pull of gravity embracing you, holding you safe, holding you still. Imagine, for a moment, that the room around you is dissolving, the walls fading into a soft velvety mist, and the ceiling opening up to reveal a boundless night sky, scattered with slow-burning stars. This is a space where time does not matter, where the demands of the day lose their grip and simply float away like dry leaves on a slow-moving stream. There is nothing you need to do here, nowhere you need to be, and no problems you need to solve. Your only task, if you can call it that, is to listen, to drift, and to let your imagination wander through the landscapes we're about to explore. Close your eyes, or perhaps let them soften until the world blurs, and turn your gaze inward. We're about to embark on a voyage through the greatest mystery known to existence. The mystery of you, the mystery of the observer, the enigma of consciousness itself. It is the light that illuminates the world, the screen upon which your life plays out, and yet it remains a beautiful, elusive ghost. As we drift through these thoughts, let them be like heavy, warm blankets, layering over you one by one, deepening your relaxation, quieting your pulse, and guiding you gently toward the restorative shores of sleep. Breathe in the stillness, breathe out the noise. Let us push off from the shore and float into the deep, dark ocean of the mind. Imagine you're sitting alone in a comfortable chair, looking out a window at a brilliant crimson sunset. You see the colour red. It washes over your vision, warm and vibrant. Science can tell us that this is merely a specific wavelength of light hitting the retina, triggering an electrical impulse that travels to the brain. But science struggles to explain the feeling of redness, the subjective experience that is unique to you. This is what philosophers call the hard problem of consciousness. It is the difference between a camera recording a sunset and a human soul feeling it. Picture a robot that can detect the wavelength of red light. It knows the data, but it does not feel the warmth, the awe, or the melancholic beauty of the day ending. This internal movie, this secret theatre that only you can enter, is made of what are called qualia. These are the building blocks of your private universe, the sharpness of a cold wind, the smell of old paper, the taste of sweetness. Relax into the knowledge that your experience is a fortress, a private sanctuary that can never be fully breached or perfectly shared. You're the sole inhabitant of your own mind, the king or queen of a kingdom of sensation that exists nowhere else in the universe. Let this thought isolate you in the most comforting way, wrapping you in a cocoon of unique existence, where the colour red is yours and yours alone, a secret painting hanging in the gallery of your mind. Drifting deeper now, let your mind expand outward from the self to the very fabric of the cosmos. Imagine for a moment that the universe itself is humming, not with sound, but with a quiet, ancient awareness. There is a beautiful and ancient theory known as panpsychism, which suggests that consciousness is not something that just magically appears in brains, but is a fundamental property of matter, like mass or electrical charge. Picture a stone resting by a riverbed. In this view, even that stone holds a tiny, primitive glimmer of experience, not a complex thought, but a simple, dull hum of existence. Visualize the atoms that make up your body, the electrons spinning in the vast emptiness of the microscopic world. If panpsychism is true, the universe is not a cold, dead machine, but a living network, awake and shimmering with potential. It means you're not a stranger in the world, an accident of biology, but a crescendo in a symphony that has been playing since the Big Bang. You're made of the same awake dust as the stars and the soil. Feel a sense of profound connection, a root system extending from your spine down into the earth, connecting you to the rocks, the water and the air. You're part of a conscious tapestry, woven tightly into the majestic, breathing whole of reality. From this universal connection, let us float gently toward the architecture of your own brain, visualizing it as a grand, darkened theatre. This is the imagery of the global workspace theory. Imagine the vast majority of your brain's activity as the bustling backstage crew, thousands of workers managing your heart rate, your balance, your memories, and your digestion, all working in the dark, unseen and unheard. They are the silent machinery that keeps you alive. But in the centre of this dark theatre, there is a single, bright spotlight shining on the stage. Whatever steps into this spotlight becomes you in this moment. When you feel a pain in your foot, it has stepped into the spotlight. When you remember a childhood friend, they have walked onto the stage. The rest of the audience remains in the shadows, influential but invisible. This theory suggests that consciousness is simply the broadcast, the highlighted moment that is shared across the entire brain. It is comforting to know that you do not have to manage the whole theatre. You only need to watch the play. You can relax, knowing that the silent crew backstage is handling everything else, allowing you to focus on the single illuminated beam of the now, watching thoughts enter and exit the light like actors in a slow, silent drama. As we move deeper into the physical structure of this theatre, visualize a thin, jagged sheet of neurons hidden deep beneath the wrinkled surface of the brain, like a secret room in a sprawling mansion. This is the claustrum. Some scientists, including the legendary Francis Crick, believed this tiny, thin structure might be the conductor of the orchestra, the place where the disparate sounds of the violin, the drum, and the flute are bound together into a single song. Imagine a vine wrapping around the centre of your brain, connecting the visual to the auditory, the touch to the smell. Without this binding, you might see a bird fly and hear a chirp, but you wouldn't understand them as happening together. The claustrum acts as the grand unifier, the loom that weaves the threads of sensation into the seamless cloth of reality you are wearing right now. It is a fragile, delicate bridge, and when you sleep, it is thought that this conductor lays down the baton. Visualize that conductor gently lowering their arms, signaling the music to fade, the connections to loosen. As the claustrum rests, the world unbinds, and you are free to float in the fragmented, abstract peacefulness of the void, untethered from the strict logic of the waking world. Let us drift now into the realm of pure mathematics and light, visualizing a complex web of glowing nodes, like a spiderweb made of fiber optics. This brings us to integrated information theory, often symbolized by the Greek letter phi. This theory proposes that consciousness is a measure of how interconnected a system is. Imagine a digital camera. It has millions of sensors, but they're all independent. One pixel does not know what the other is doing. It has low phi, low consciousness. Now picture your mind. When you see a face, you don't just see patches of colour. You see a friend, a memory, an emotion, a name, all igniting at once in a complex knot of information. The more integrated the information, the brighter the light of consciousness. You're a being of incredible complexity, a blazing star of integration in a universe of loose dust. As you relax, imagine the knots in that web loosening just a little. You don't need to hold the picture together right now. You can let the integration soften, let the connections slacken. Allow your hi-fi mind to dim its lights, lowering the voltage, conserving energy, moving from the complex knot of the day into the smooth, simple thread of the night. Reflecting on this complexity, imagine standing before a still, silver pool of water. You lean over and see a face looking back at you. You recognize it as me. This is the mirror test, a famous measure of self-awareness. Very few creatures on Earth, dolphins, elephants, magpies, can look into a mirror and understand that the reflection is themselves and not another animal. It seems simple, but it is a profound leap in the history of the universe looking at itself. Visualize an elephant touching a painted dot on its forehead while looking in a mirror. It knows. It has a concept of I. but realize that this I is a construction, a story you tell yourself. In deep relaxation, you can lay down the burden of the mirror. You can step away from the reflection. You do not need to be a self right now. You do not need a name, a history, or a face. You can simply be a point of awareness, floating without identity, liberated from the need to recognize or define who you are. The water becomes still again. The reflection fades, and you are left with the peace of formlessness. From this formlessness, we drift into the quiet moments of the day, the times when you're staring out of a window, waiting for a train, or lying in bed. When you stop focusing on a task, you might think your brain shuts down, but in fact, a massive network powers up. This is the default mode network. It is the brain's autopilot, the storyteller that comes online when the outside world gets boring. It is the source of your daydreams, your memories of the past, and your plans for the future. Visualize this network as a warm, golden path through a forest. When you step off the paved road of work and focus, you wander onto this soft, mossy trail. It is where you go to time travel, to revisit a childhood summer or imagine a conversation yet to happen. But sometimes, this network works too hard, spinning in circles of worry. Tonight, we guide the default mode network to a meadow of rest. We thank the storyteller for its work, but we ask it to pause the narrative. There is no past to analyze, no future to predict. There is only the soft moss underfoot, the stillness of the mental forest, and the suspension of the story. Drifting further back in time, imagine a world thousands of years ago, where the silence of the mind was filled not with internal thoughts, but with the voices of gods. This is the theory of the bicameral mind, proposed by Julian Jaynes. He suggested that ancient humans, perhaps the writers of the Iliad, did not have introspection as we know it. When they faced a difficult decision, they did not think it over. They heard an auditory hallucination, a command from the right hemisphere of the brain speaking to the left. They experienced their own thoughts as external voices, as divine intervention. Picture a warrior standing on a dusty plain, hearing a whisper in the wind telling him to charge or to flee. He believes it is a god. Over centuries, the waters of the mind merged, the bridge between the hemispheres strengthened, and the voices became internalized. The gods became me. The external command became the internal monologue. As you listen to my voice now, let it replace your own internal narrator. Let the burden of thinking be lifted. You do not need to generate your own thoughts. You can simply float on the stream of these words, returning to a time when guidance came from outside and the mind was a quiet vessel waiting to be filled. Finally, we arrive at the elusive nature of the present moment. Try to catch the now. Snap your fingers. By the time you hear the snap, it is already in the past. It takes time for sound to reach your ears, for signals to travel up your nerves, for the brain to process the data. Science tells us we live in a permanent delay, perhaps 80 milliseconds to half a second behind reality. You're never truly seeing the world as it is right now. You're seeing a delayed broadcast, a memory of the immediate past. Visualize yourself reaching out to touch a star. The light from that star took millions of years to reach you. You're looking at a ghost. Similarly, but on a smaller scale, when you touch your own hand, there is a tiny lag. You're a time traveler, forever surfing just behind the crest of the wave of time. This delay is a cushion, a buffer between you and the raw edge of existence. Let this buffer comfort you. It means you're always safe in the afterglow of the moment. The sharp edge of the now has already passed by the time you perceive it. You're floating in the gentle wake of time, protected by the delay, drifting comfortably in the echo of reality, ready to let the timeline dissolve completely as you move toward the timelessness of sleep. And just as we float in that gentle wake of time, cushioned by the delay between the stars and our eyes, between the touch and the feeling, we can begin to question the very boundaries of the vessel that holds us. We often believe that our physical body is a solid, unchangeable anchor, a distinct island of me, separated from the not-me of the world. But let us drift toward the curious pliability of self, illustrated by what is known as the rubber hand illusion. Visualize yourself sitting at a wooden table, your real hand hidden behind a velvet screen, resting in warm, comfortable darkness. In front of you, in plain sight, lies a rubber hand, a mere replica. Imagine a soft brush stroking your hidden hand, while simultaneously you watch the brush stroke the rubber hand in the exact same rhythm, up and down, soft and slow. At first, you see the fake hand as an object, but as the sensations synchronize, a strange and magical shift occurs. Your brain, craving a unified story, begins to claim the rubber hand as its own. You start to feel the touch in the plastic. The boundary of your body dissolves and extends outward, adopting foreign matter into the sanctuary of the self. This tells us that the feeling of ownership over your body is not a fixed fact, but a fluid construction, a flexible map that your mind draws and redraws moment by moment. It is a comforting realization, for it suggests that your consciousness is not trapped within your skin. You are fluid, you are expansive, you can extend your awareness into the world, merging with the chair you sit in, the bed you lie on, until the distinction between the dreamer and the bed fades away completely, leaving only a unified field of rest. From this fluid sense of body, we drift into the visual landscape, exploring how your mind paints the world around you. We often assume that our eyes are video cameras, recording every detail of the room, every leaf on the tree, every shift in the light. But let us consider the phenomenon of change blindness. Imagine looking at a bustling street scene in a painting. People walking, clouds drifting, a dog sleeping by a cafe. If the image flickers for just a split second and a major detail changes, perhaps a building disappears or the dog vanishes, you likely would not notice. Your mind does not render the world in perfect, high-resolution detail everywhere at once. Instead, it creates a grand, stable illusion of completeness. It paints the periphery in broad, impressionistic strokes, filling in the gaps with expectations and memories. Far from being a flaw, this is a mercy. It means you do not need to process every chaotic signal the universe throws at you. Your consciousness filters the noise, presenting you with a simplified, manageable, and peaceful version of reality. You can relax into this filtered world, knowing that your mind is a gentle editor, smoothing out the rough edges, ignoring the unnecessary clutter, and allowing you to focus only on what matters. You're safe in this edited masterpiece, protected from the overwhelming flood of raw data, resting in the quiet gaps where the brain simply says, "All is well, all is the same." As we settle into this smoothed-over version of reality, let us journey inward to the physical divide that exists in the very center of your being. Visualize the brain not as a single sphere, but as two hemispheres, two distinct islands of awareness connected by a massive bridge of nerve fibers called the corpus callosum. In the mid-20th century, scientists studied patients who had this bridge severed, revealing the startling truth of the split brain. When the bridge is cut, the two sides can function independently, holding different intentions, different memories, and perhaps different streams of consciousness. Imagine the left hemisphere, the chatterbox, the storyteller, the one that speaks and reasons, sitting by a fire. Across the dark water, the right hemisphere sits in silence. It cannot speak, but it recognizes faces, it understands music, it perceives the emotional depth of the world. It is the silent companion, the quiet observer that has been with you your entire life, watching from the shadows without ever saying a word. There is a profound comfort in acknowledging this silent twin. You are never truly alone, for you contain a partnership within your own skull. As you drift towards sleep, imagine the bridge between the two islands lowering its drawbridge. The chatter of the left side quiets down, bowing to the silent, intuitive wisdom of the right. The logical speaking mind can finally rest, handing over the controls to the silent guardian who navigates the dream world without the need for words, guiding you through the night with a mute and ancient understanding. This transition from the logical mind to the silent dreamer brings us to the edge of a vast, lucid ocean. Most of the time, we are passengers in our dreams, swept along by strange tides and shifting narratives. But occasionally, a spark of awareness ignites within the dream itself. This is lucid dreaming. Visualize yourself walking through a familiar house, perhaps your childhood home. Suddenly you notice something impossible, a clock melting down the wall, or a window looking out onto a landscape of purple mountains. In that moment, a realization washes over you like a cool breeze. I am dreaming. Instead of waking up, you remain in the dream. But now you are the architect. The fear dissolves because you know it is all an illusion. You can push off the ground and float up toward the ceiling, passing through the roof to soar among the clouds. You are the master of this reality. This concept reminds us that consciousness is capable of observing itself even in the deepest states of rest. It suggests that reality is malleable, a projection of the mind that can be shaped by will and intent. Tonight, as you approach the gates of sleep, you can carry a tiny seed of this intention with you. You can plant a wish to realize you are dreaming, to turn the chaos of the night into a playground of flight and freedom, where the laws of physics are replaced by the laws of imagination, and gravity is nothing more than a suggestion you can choose to ignore. As we float through this playground of the mind, imagine that the senses themselves begin to bleed into one another, dissolving the rigid walls that usually separate sight from sound and taste from touch. We drift now into the vibrant kaleidoscopic world of synesthesia. For some, the letter A is not just a shape, but a vivid crimson red. The sound of a cello is not just a note, but the taste of rich, dark chocolate. The strum of a guitar might produce a shower of golden sparks in the mind's eye. Even if you do not experience this in your waking life, in the borderlands of sleep, we are all synesthetes. The brain's sensory pathways are not isolated pipes. They are a tangled, glowing web. Visualize your consciousness as a great mixing board where the inputs of the world are blended. As you relax, let the sound of my voice become a texture, perhaps a soft grey velvet wrapping around your shoulders. Let the darkness behind your eyelids become a deep, resonant hum. The boundaries of your senses are softening, melting into a single, unified experience of being. You do not need to categorize the world anymore. You don't need to distinguish between what you hear and what you feel. It is all one washing tide of sensation, a warm bath of colored sound and tasty light, swirling around you, cleansing you of the need to analyze, leaving only the pure, blended joy of perception. Deep within this swirl of sensory light, science searches for the physical anchor, the precise blueprint of awareness. This quest is for the neural correlates of consciousness. Imagine a vast, dark city at night, your brain. As a thought arises, perhaps the memory of the smell of rain, a specific neighborhood of this city lights up. A precise constellation of neurons fires in a synchronized rhythm. This pattern, this specific electrical dance is the thought. It is a miracle of transformation, turning sodium and potassium ions into the feeling of nostalgia. Visualize the billions of neurons in your head as a field of fireflies in a dark forest. When you're awake and alert, the fireflies flash in complex, chaotic storms. But as you sink deeper into relaxation, the flashes slow down. The storm settles. The neural correlates of the waking world, the patterns for work, stress, planning, begin to dim one by one. In their place, the slower, rhythmic pulses of the sleep state begin to glow, like a gentle tide of light washing through the forest. You can visualize this powering down process, seeing the city lights of your mind turning off block by block, street by street, until only the essential dim night lights remain, keeping the system humming in a low-energy state of preservation and peace. As the lights dim, we find ourselves slipping into a state of effortless motion, a psychological current known as the flow state. You have likely felt this before, when you were so engrossed in a book, a run, or a creative task that the world fell away. In this state, the self vanishes. The inner critic, that voice that constantly judges and monitors, goes silent. There is no I doing the action. There is only the action itself. The dancer becomes the dance. The painter becomes the paint. This loss of self is not a death, but a liberation. It is the most restful state the active mind can know. As you lie here, you can enter a flow state of pure relaxation. Imagine you are a leaf falling from a tree. The leaf does not try to fall. It does not plan its path. It does not worry about the landing. It simply surfs the air. You are that leaf. You're entering a flow where you're not trying to sleep. You're not doing relaxation. You're simply being. The friction of the ego, the friction of trying to control the outcome disappears. You're sliding effortlessly down the river of time, carried by a current that knows exactly where to take you, requiring no effort, no steering, just the simple, brave act of letting go. In this state of letting go, we might worry that if we stop paying attention, the world will disappear. But we're comforted by the developmental milestone known as object permanence. As infants, we learned a profound truth, that things continue to exist even when we cannot see them. When the toy is hidden under the blanket, it is not gone. It is waiting. Apply this ancient lesson to your own life right now. As you close your eyes and the world fades into darkness, your problems, your responsibilities, and your identity are hidden under the blanket of the night. But the world remains stable. The sun will rise tomorrow without your supervision. The earth will spin without your help. Your loved ones, your home, your future. They are all safe, existing in the permanence of reality, waiting for you to return to them refreshed. You do not need to hold the world together with your gaze. You can withdraw your attention completely, retracting your awareness into the shell of the self, secure in the knowledge that the structure of your life is built on solid ground. It will be there when you wake. For now, you are free to leave it all behind, knowing that nothing is lost in the silence of the dark. Deep in the archives of this permanent world, there is a concept that speaks to the incredible specificity of your memory, the grandmother neuron. Scientists once discovered that there are single neurons in the brain that fire only when you see a specific person, even if it is just a picture or their name written down. They found neurons that responded only to Jennifer Aniston or to the concept of the Sydney Opera House. This suggests that your brain is a vast library with a dedicated librarian for every significant face, place, and object you have ever known. Visualize this library now, rows and rows of shelves stretching into the infinite dark filled with the books of your life. But tonight, the library is closing. Imagine the librarian walking down the aisles, gently extinguishing the lamps above the shelves. The neuron for your work turns off. The neuron for your bills turns off. The neuron for the traffic jam turns off. Even the neurons for your closest friends and family are given permission to rest, their lights dimming to a soft, warm ember. You're not losing these memories. You're simply tucking them in. The specificity of the world is fading into a general soft blur. You do not need to recognize anything right now. You do not need to identify or label. The library is safe, the doors are locked, and you are free to float in the quiet, unlabeled space between the shelves, where no specific demands are made on your attention. Finally, let us drift to the ultimate philosophical cushion, the thought experiment of the brain in a vat. Imagine, if you will, that it is possible that none of the outside world is real in the way you think it is. A brain suspended in a warm, nutrient-rich fluid, stimulated by precise electrical impulses, would experience a world just as vivid, just as textured as this one. It would feel the sheets, smell the air, and hear the silence just as you do. While this sounds like a sci-fi scenario, there is a deep, lulling comfort in it for the weary mind. It implies that your experience, the sensation of comfort, the feeling of safety, is valid regardless of the external cause. It does not matter if the world outside the window is stormy or still, chaotic or calm. Your reality is generated internally. You are the creator of your own peace. If you simulate warmth, you are warm. If you simulate safety, you are safe. You can withdraw from the external world completely, retreating into the private, simulated sanctuary of your own consciousness. You're floating in the vat of the cosmos, suspended in the nutrients of the universe, disconnected from the hard wires of the day. There is no out there to worry about anymore. There is only in here, in the warm, dark, generated fluid of your own peace, where the only thing that exists is the gentle, rhythmic pulse of your own being, drifting deeper and deeper into the simulation of sleep. And within this simulated sanctuary, where the external world has dissolved into a mere hypothesis, we find ourselves standing before a heavy, sealed door leading to a room of pure monochrome. This brings us to the famous thought experiment known as Mary's Room. Imagine a brilliant scientist who has lived her entire life in a room painted completely in shades of black and white. She has never seen colour. She possesses every book ever written about the physics of light. She knows the precise wavelength of red. She understands how the optic nerve processes crimson, and she can describe the neural firing patterns of a brain looking at a rose. She possesses all the physical information there is to know. But imagine now that the door creaks open, revealing a world she has never truly entered. She steps out and sees for the very first time a bright, ripe red apple resting on a table. In that split second, she learns something that all her books could never teach her. She learns what it feels like to see red. This creates a soothing distinction for us tonight, the difference between the noise of information and the silence of experience. You may know the biology of sleep, the statistics of rest, and the chemistry of tiredness, but none of that matters now. The data is left behind in the black and white room. You're stepping out into the vibrant subjective reality of the experience itself. You're not studying relaxation, you are feeling it. It is a sensation that cannot be written down, only lived. Let the intellectual mind remain in the grey room with its charts and figures, while you, the conscious observer, step into the warmth of the apple, the richness of the moment, surrendering to the pure, unexplainable quality of simply being at rest. As you enjoy this pure experience, untethered by data, you might notice how your attention begins to act as a protective shield, filtering out the unnecessary. Consider the phenomenon of inattentional blindness, often illustrated by the famous experiment where observers watching a basketball game are so focused on counting passes that they completely fail to see a person in a gorilla suit walk right through the middle of the court. We often think of this as a failure of the brain, a blind spot. But in the landscape of sleep, this is your greatest defense. Visualize your mind as a focused beam of light. When you direct that light toward the sensation of your own breathing, or the heaviness of your limbs, the gorillas of the world, the worries, the to-do lists, the background noises, effectively cease to exist. They may walk through the court of your mind, but because your aperture is narrowed to the frequency of peace, you simply do not see them. They are invisible ghosts passing through a solid wall. There is a profound relief in this blindness. You're not ignoring the world, you're rendering it transparent. You have the power to make the chaos vanish simply by not looking at it. By anchoring your gaze on the velvet darkness behind your eyelids, you turn the rest of the universe into a blur, a background texture that holds no weight, leaving you alone in the center of a quiet, empty court. From this visual quietude, we drift into the auditory realm, entering a crowded, boisterous hall to explore the cocktail party effect. Imagine standing in a room filled with 100 people talking at once, a roar of indistinct chatter. Yet, amidst this ocean of noise, if someone across the room whispers your name, your attention snaps to it instantly. Your brain has the incredible ability to dampen the volume of the entire world while keeping a single channel open for what is important. Tonight, we utilize this mechanism in reverse. Instead of tuning into a name, we gently turn the dial down on everything. Visualize the inputs of the day, the conversations, the traffic, the screens, as that crowded room. You are the sound engineer at the mixing board. Slowly you slide the master fader down. The roar becomes a hum. The hum becomes a whisper. The whisper fades into the rhythmic white noise sound of the ocean. You're tuning out the signal, leaving only the carrier wave of silence. Even if there are sounds in your physical environment, a car passing outside, the creak of the house, your brain classifies them as safe and pushes them into the background. They become part of the wallpaper of the night, a dull, comforting texture that confirms you are safe, allowing you to drift deeper into the silence you have curated for yourself. As the voices fade, even the words inside your own head begin to lose their rigid structures. We drift toward a curious psychological phenomenon known as semantic satiation. You may have experienced this when you repeat a word over and over again, perhaps umbrella, 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 until suddenly it snaps. It stops being a meaningful symbol and dissolves into a weird alien sound. The meaning evaporates, leaving only the raw vibration of the syllables. This is a key to unlocking the gate of sleep. The narrative in your mind is made of words, problems, plans, stories. But if you take a thought, a mantra, or a simple word like calm and let it loop gently in your mind, the rigid meaning begins to melt. The word calm loses its definition and becomes just a soft, round sound, a pebble polished by the sea. Calm, calm, calm. The sharp edges of language wear down. You're no longer thinking in sentences. You're floating on phonemes, on vibrations. The tyranny of language is broken. The need to understand, to define, and to structure your thoughts dissolves, leaving you in a space before language was invented, where there is no difference between the word for peace and the feeling of peace itself. In this space beyond language, patterns still linger, echoing the activities of the day. This brings us to the Tetris effect. When people play a puzzle game for hours, they close their eyes and still see the falling blocks, turning and fitting together in the darkness. This proves that consciousness is a pattern-matching machine, continuing to organize and process even when the input has stopped. It creates a lingering after-image of order. Tonight, let us replace the chaotic patterns of the day with a geometry of rest. Instead of falling blocks, visualize soft, glowing orbs of light drifting down slowly from the top of your vision to the bottom. They move with the viscosity of honey. As each orb lands, it dissolves into the floor of your mind, spreading a ripple of relaxation. Your brain, craving a pattern, will latch onto this slow descent. It will begin to expect the slowness, to predict the ease. You're programming the Tetris effect of tranquility. Watch the shapes fall, slow, steady, rhythmic. There is no high score to beat, no speed to keep up with. The game plays itself, organizing your scattered thoughts into neat, dissolving rows, clearing the board of your mind until it is perfectly empty and clean. As these patterns settle, consider the physical landscape of the brain itself, shifting and changing like sand dunes in the wind. This is the miracle of neuroplasticity. For a long time, we believed the adult brain was fixed, a hardened statue. We now know it is more like clay, constantly reshaping itself based on what you do and think. Every thought cuts a groove, every repeated feeling deepens a channel. By choosing to relax now, you're physically altering the structure of your brain. You're carving a canyon of calm. Imagine a stream of water flowing over a dry, dusty plain. At first, the water struggles to find a path, but with every passing second, the bed deepens, the flow becomes smoother, the water moves with less resistance. Tonight, you are deepening the neural pathways of rest. You're teaching your brain that this state, this heaviness, this slowness, is a familiar road, one that is easy to travel. Feel the gratitude for this plasticity. You're not stuck with your stress or your habits. You're a work in progress, a landscape that is being gently eroded by the soft, persistent river of your breath, reshaping yourself into a vessel perfectly designed to hold the waters of sleep. Drifting further, we connect not just with our own structure, but with the unseen web that links us to all living things. Deep in the frontal cortex lie the mirror neurons. These are the empathy cells. When you watch someone yawn, these neurons fire as if you are yawning yourself. When you see someone in pain, you wince. But this works for peace as well. It is why watching a sleeping animal or a sleeping child brings such a profound sense of quiet to the soul. Visualize, if you will, a great sleeping creature, perhaps a massive ancient lion resting in the sun, or a curled-up cat on a velvet cushion. Its breathing is slow and rhythmic. Its body is entirely limp, surrendered to gravity. Your mirror neurons are watching this image. They are copying the code of that relaxation. You are borrowing the lion's peace. You feel your own muscles mimicking that heaviness, your own breath falling into sync with that ancient sleepy rhythm. You're not generating this sleep alone. You are mirroring the collective rest of every sleeping being on Earth. You're joining a vast, silent choir of rest, harmonizing with the universal state of slumber, feeling the connection that tells you it is safe to let go because the rest of the world is resting with you. As you sync with this universal rhythm, you may notice that the clock on the wall seems to lose its authority. We enter the realm of subjective time perception. We know that in moments of fear, time seems to slow down. The car accident happens in slow motion. But in moments of deep flow or sleep, hours can vanish in a blink. Time is not a rigid ruler. It is an elastic band stretching and compressing based on your state of consciousness. Right now, we are stretching the band. We are entering the timeless time of the deep mind. Imagine that the second hand on the clock is moving through syrup. Tick. Tock. The space between the seconds is expanding, opening up into vast, cavernous valleys of silence. In this expanded state, there is no rush, for there is endless time. A single breath can last an eternity. You're stepping out of the marching linear time of the clock and floating in the ocean of vertical time, where the only moment is now. Let the concept of tomorrow drift away. That is a different country, across a different ocean. Here, in the stretched out now, there are no deadlines. There is only the slow, rhythmic expansion of the present moment, holding you in a suspension that feels infinite and eternal. In this timeless suspension, you may find your mind reaching for a thought, a name, or a memory, only to find it just out of reach. This is the familiar tip of the tongue phenomenon, or lethologica. Usually this is frustrating, a gap where a word should be. But here, in the shadow of sleep, we reframe this gap as a sanctuary. The missing word is a locked door that you do not need to open. Visualize a library where many of the books have blank spines. You reach for a specific worry, a specific detail of tomorrow, but you cannot quite grasp it. It is on the tip of your mind, but it slips away. Let it slip. The gap is not empty. It is filled with a soft, cotton-like fog. It is a relief not to know. It is a luxury not to be able to recall the item on the to-do list. Embrace the lethologica. Embrace the spaces between the thoughts. It is in these gaps, these failures of memory, that sleep takes root. You are unknowing the world. You are unnaming the objects. You are floating in the beautiful blurry space of the ungraspable, where nothing is sharp enough to cut you, and everything is soft enough to cushion your fall. And now, as the definitions blur and the time stretches, we arrive at the misty borderland itself, hypnagogia. This is the transient state of consciousness between wakefulness and sleep. It is the twilight zone where the rules of reality finally break down completely. You might see flashes of geometric colours, hear a voice calling your name, or feel the sensation of floating or falling. Do not be alarmed by these phantoms. They are the signposts of arrival. They are the ushers of the night. Your brain is beginning to dream before you are fully asleep. Logic is unravelling into loose threads of imagery. You might see a staircase turning into a waterfall, or a face transforming into a flower. Watch these hallucinations with the detachment of a visitor in an art gallery. You are safe. You are simply witnessing the changing of the guard, the moment when the conscious pilot steps down and the autopilot of the dream world takes the controls. Lean into the weirdness, lean into the drift. Let the colours wash over you. The shore of the waking world is disappearing into the fog behind you, and the ship of your consciousness is gliding silently, inevitably, into the open, star-filled waters of the deep sleep that awaits. As the fog of hypnagogia swirls around you, transforming the logic of the day into the abstract art of the night, you may find your mind gently playing a game of recognition with the shadows. This brings us to the comforting phenomenon of pareidolia. You know this feeling well, lying on the grass looking up at the drifting cumulus clouds and suddenly seeing a dragon, a ship, or a smiling face. It is the mind's innate desire to find the familiar in the chaos, to impose a friendly structure on the random noise of the universe. Tonight, as you gaze into the velvet darkness behind your closed eyes, you might see shifting patches of grey or subtle pulses of light. Watch as your mind gently sculpts them. A patch of darkness becomes the silhouette of a resting hill. A flicker of light becomes a distant guiding lantern. This is not a trick of the mind, but a feature of your consciousness, a testament to your brain's relentless optimism, its refusal to accept emptiness. It seeks connection everywhere, turning the void into a canvas of potential companions. Let this reassure you that you are never truly looking into an abyss. You're looking into a mirror that reflects your own desire for order and connection. You can relax into this creative drift, letting the random static of the night weave itself into a tapestry of soft, recognizable and comforting shapes, knowing that your mind is keeping you company, painting friendly faces on the walls of sleep. From this tendency to find patterns, we drift deeper into the mind's ability to heal and complete what is broken, a principle known in psychology as Gestalt. Imagine a circle drawn on a piece of paper, but with a small gap in the line. When you look at it, you do not see a broken curve, you see a circle. Your mind automatically fills in the blank, bridging the gap to create a unified whole. It prioritizes the complete picture over the fragmented parts. Apply this soothing balm to your own sense of self tonight. Throughout the day, you may have felt fragmented, pulled in different directions by work, family and stress, feeling like a collection of scattered tasks rather than a whole person. But as you lie here, the Gestalt principle of your consciousness takes over. It smooths over the cracks. It connects the disparate moments of your day into a single continuous narrative of you. You do not need to effortfully hold yourself together. You can let go of the pieces, trusting that the gravity of your own mind will pull them into a perfect, unbroken sphere of existence. In the eyes of your own consciousness, you are already whole, you are already complete, and the gaps you perceive are merely spaces where the light of relaxation is allowed to shine through, binding the edges of your spirit together in a seamless loop of rest. Beneath this unified surface, we encounter the colossal, submerged mass of your being, described by the metaphor of the unconscious mind. Freud and Jung famously likened the mind to an iceberg. The conscious self, the part of you that talks, plans and worries, is merely the small, snowy tip protruding above the water. It is the only part you usually see, and so you believe it is the whole story. But tonight, we descend below the waterline. Visualize yourself sinking slowly, weightlessly, into the deep indigo ocean that holds the iceberg. Here, in the vast, silent depths, lies 90% of who you are. This is the repository of deep wisdom, automatic functions and ancient instincts. It is the part of you that beats your heart without a reminder, that knits your cells together, that dreams your dreams. It is an immense, powerful and benevolent force that supports the tiny tip of the ego. It is exhausting to stay perched on the tip, buffeted by the winds of the world. So, let yourself sink into the support of the unconscious. Realize that you do not need to run your life right now. The great submerged mountain of your mind is buoyant and strong. You can rest your weary conscious awareness on this deep foundation, letting the silent, dark waters carry the weight of your existence, floating in the safety of your own vastness. In these deep waters, the rules of vision change, leading us to the mysterious phenomenon of blind sight. There are individuals who, due to damage in the visual cortex, claim to be completely blind. Yet, if you ask them to walk down a cluttered hallway, they will navigate around chairs and boxes without knowing how. Their conscious mind sees nothing, only darkness, but a deeper, more primitive part of their brain still perceives the world and guides them safely through it. This is a profound metaphor for the act of sleeping. You're entering a darkened room. You cannot see where you're going with your conscious logic. You cannot plan the route to the dream world, but you possess a blind sight of the soul. There is a pilot within you that knows the way. You can turn off the conscious lights, close the heavy lids of your eyes, and trust this inner navigator. It knows exactly how to steer you through the shoals of the night. It knows how to avoid the sharp edges of anxiety and guide you toward the soft landing of deep rest. You do not need to be at the helm. You can relinquish control, knowing that even in the absence of conscious sight, you're being watched over, guided and protected by an awareness that never truly sleeps, a guardian that sees in the dark. As we navigate this dark path, we are gently nudged by the subtle whispers of the day, a concept known as priming. Psychology tells us that if a person holds a cup of warm coffee, they are more likely to perceive a stranger as having a warm personality. The sensation of the physical world plants a seed that blooms in the mind. The environment subtly primes the consciousness, colouring our thoughts without us even realising it. Tonight, we use this power with intention. By lying in this soft bed, by pulling the heavy duvet up to your chin, by feeling the coolness of the pillow, you are physically priming your mind for peace. You're sending a tactile code to your brain that says, safe, warm, soft. These physical sensations are not just passive comforts, they're active commands. The warmth of the blanket is priming your emotions to feel warm and secure. The darkness of the room is priming your thoughts to dim and settle. You're building a nest of sensory cues, each one a gentle suggestion to your consciousness to lower its defences. Let the softness of the sheets seep into your very thoughts, softening the edges of your worries, until your mind mimics the environment, becoming as still and as comfortable as the bed in which you lie. This alignment of environment and mind leads us to the secret library of state-dependent memory. Have you ever forgotten a PIN number or a name, only to have it pop back into your head when you return to the place where you first learned it? Information is often locked behind the door of a specific state of being. The memories of the waking world, the passwords, the schedules, the stresses, are keyed to the state of alertness. They belong to the bright, sharp sunlight. But there is another room, a secret chamber that can only be unlocked when you're in the state of deep relaxation. As your brainwaves slow, the doors to the stress-filled office of the day automatically lock. You simply cannot access those worries from here. They do not belong to this frequency. Instead, other drawers open, ancient dusty drawers filled with the memories of every peaceful night you have ever known. The feeling of being rocked as a child, the smell of rain on a hot night, the sensation of drifting on a raft. These memories are state-dependent. They are waiting for you now. As you shift your state from awake to asleep, you are stepping into a sanctuary where only peaceful things can exist. A VIP lounge for the soul, where the worries of the day are not on the guest list and are gently turned away at the door. Leaving the library of memory, we float toward the very fabric of reality and the quantum concept of the observer effect. In the subatomic world, particles like electrons exist as a haze of probability, a wave of potential, until they are observed. The act of measuring them forces them to snap into a fixed position. When you look, the world becomes solid. When you don't look, it remains a fluid, dreamy possibility. Consider this. Your conscious attention is the measurement that keeps your life solid. All day long, you've been observing your problems, freezing them into hard, unmovable facts. But now, as you withdraw your attention, as you close the aperture of your eyes, you stop measuring the world. You stop collapsing the wave function. The furniture in the room, the walls of the house, the timeline of your life, they all soften. They lose their hard edges. They return to the state of a wave, flowing and flexible. You're no longer a fixed point in a fixed world. You're a wave floating in an ocean of waves. The rigidity of reality dissolves into a soft quantum soup. There are no hard facts here, no concrete obligations. Everything is fluid, everything is possible, and you are free to drift in this unformed, liquid universe where nothing is solid enough to hurt you. As you float in this fluid potential, you begin to feel a gentle tug, a rhythmic pulse that aligns you with the planet. This is the biological wonder of entrainment, or the synchronization of circadian rhythms. Just as a room full of pendulum clocks will eventually swing in perfect unison, your body is designed to sync with the rotation of the Earth. Deep in your brain, the suprachiasmatic nucleus is the master clock, listening to the rhythm of the sun and the moon. You're not separate from the planet, you're a gear in its great mechanism. Feel the massive, slow rotation of the Earth beneath you. It is turning away from the sun, turning toward the dark, and your body is turning with it. You do not have to force yourself to sleep, you simply have to allow yourself to be entrained. Let your heart rate slow down to match the cooling air. Let your breathing deepen to match the swaying of the trees outside. You're being magnetically pulled into the dark side of the world, caught in the gravity of rest. Surrender to this planetary tide. It is a force billions of years old, a river of time that carries every living thing into the restorative shadow. You are part of the great synchronized shutting down of the hemisphere, joining the trees, the birds, and the oceans in a collective exhale. To protect this delicate synchronization, your brain deploys its own guardians. If we were to look at your brainwaves now, we would see short, rapid bursts of electrical activity known as sleep spindles. These are the sentinels of the night. Science suggests that these spindles act as a noise-cancelling mechanism. When a car honks outside or a floorboard creaks, the thalamus generates a spindle to block that sensory information from reaching your conscious awareness. Visualize these spindles as golden threads being spun rapidly around you, weaving a cocoon of silence. They are the shields that intercept the noise of the world, catching the disturbances and dissolving them before they can wake you. With every minute that passes, your brain is spinning more of these protective webs, wrapping you tighter and tighter in a layer of insulation. You're safe inside this silken fortress. The world may still be noisy, but the noise cannot touch you. It bounces off the golden shield of the spindles, leaving you undisturbed in the center, wrapped in the cotton wool of your own neurobiology, protected by the diligent weavers of the mind. Safe within this cocoon, we finally experience the dissolution of the body itself, a phenomenon related to the fading of proprioception. Proprioception is your sixth sense, the ability to know where your limbs are in space without looking. It is the map your brain maintains of your body. But as you drift deeper into the onset of sleep, this map begins to fade. The signals from your muscles grow quiet. The feedback loops slow down. You might begin to feel as though your hands are miles away from your torso, or that your legs have dissolved into mist. You may feel like you're expanding to fill the room, or shrinking to the size of a speck of dust. This is proprioceptive drift. It is a blissful liberation. You're shedding the heavy spacesuit of the body. You're no longer confined to a specific shape or size. You're becoming a point of pure awareness, untethered from the geometry of bone and muscle. Enjoy this weightlessness. You do not need a body where you're going. You can leave it parked safely on the mattress, a heavy anchor holding you to the earth, while your consciousness unclips the tether and floats upward, free, formless, and unbounded, drifting into the infinite expanse of the dreamscape. And within this drift, as the boundaries of your physical form dissolve into the mist, we begin to notice the gentle, rhythmic stutter of the world itself. We often believe that our vision is a continuous, unbroken stream, a flawless movie of reality. But let us explore the soothing truth of saccadic masking. Every time you move your eyes, from the window to the wall, or from one word to the next, your brain momentarily shuts down your vision. For a tiny fraction of a second, you are blind. If you were to add up all these moments, you spend about 40 minutes of every day in total darkness, even while you are awake. Your brain, the master editor, stitches these scenes together, hiding the gaps, creating an illusion of continuity. But tonight, in this deep state of relaxation, we can appreciate the gaps. Imagine these moments not as errors, but as tiny microscopic naps that your mind takes thousands of times a day. You're already an expert at slipping into the void. You do it every time you glance across the room. Now you can simply widen that gap. You can extend the blink. You can linger in the space between the frames of the movie. The visual world is not a solid wall. It is a picket fence, and you are floating through the spaces between the slats, slipping out of the bright, demanding daylight and into the cool, dark intervals where nothing exists and nothing is required of you. As you slip through these intervals, visualize yourself walking down a long, quiet corridor in the palace of your mind. You approach a heavy, arched doorway. This brings us to the psychological phenomenon known as the doorway effect, or the event boundary. You know the feeling. You walk into a room and suddenly forget why you came there. The act of crossing a threshold signals to your brain that the previous scene is over. The old files are archived to make space for the new. It is a biological reset button, a cleansing of the short-term memory. Tonight, we use this effect as a tool for profound liberation. Visualize the threshold of sleep standing before you. It is a grand, soft curtain of velvet, swaying gently in a silent breeze. As you step through this doorway, the event boundary activates. The worries of the day, the lists, the conversations, the whys and the hows, they belong to the room behind you. They cannot cross the threshold. By the laws of your own mind, passing through this gate wipes the slate clean. You're stepping into a new room, an empty room, where the data of the waking world is not just unnecessary, it is inaccessible. Feel the weight of your memory dropping from your shoulders as you cross over, leaving you light, unburdened, and ready to inhabit the pure, empty potential of the present space. Freed from the immediate past, you may still feel the faint, nagging pull of unfinished business, the echoes of tasks left undone. This is the Zeigarnik effect. The mind has a natural tension, a sticky tendency to hold on to uncompleted loops. It wants to finish the pattern. It is the reason a catchy song gets stuck in your head, or why you worry about an unresolved argument. The brain keeps the file open, consuming energy. But there is a secret way to close these loops without actually doing the work. It is the power of the mental signature. Visualize a great desk in the center of a dimly lit room, piled high with the papers of your unfinished tasks. In this deep relaxation, you simply pick up a quill, dipped in golden ink, and you write "Done for today" across the stack. By consciously acknowledging that you are finished for the night, by telling your brain that the task is to rest, you close the loop. You can feel the tension snapping, the rubber band going slack. The brain accepts this closure. The files slide shut, the drawers lock, and the mental RAM that was holding on to these anxieties is suddenly flushed, releasing a wave of fresh, cool energy that washes over you, soothing the cognitive itch, allowing you to settle into a state of total resolution. In this resolved state, the phantom audience that follows us through the day begins to disperse. We're often plagued by the spotlight effect, the innate egocentric bias that makes us feel as though the world is constantly watching, judging, and noticing us. We walk through life feeling like the protagonist on a brightly lit stage, adjusting our behaviour for an invisible crowd. But in the sanctuary of the night, the theatre empties. Visualize the spotlights above you dimming one by one. The hum of the crowd fades into silence. You realize with a wash of immense relief that the seats are empty. No one is watching. No one is keeping score. The performance is over. You can take off the costume of your personality. You do not need to be good or smart or capable right now. You do not need to be anything at all. In the dark, you are free from the gaze of the other. You are unobserved, unperceived, and therefore unbound. Collapse into the comfort of this anonymity, wrapping the cloak of invisibility around you, enjoying the profound privacy of a mind that is accountable to no one but itself. As the social world fades, the physical world around you might undergo a strange and gentle transformation, shifting into the state of jamais vu. This is the opposite of déjà vu. Instead of the new feeling familiar, the familiar feels suddenly new, strange, and dreamlike. It is the sensation of looking at a word you have written 1,000 times and suddenly not recognizing it, or looking at your own room and feeling like you have never seen it before. Embrace this detachment. Let your bedroom detach from its history. The walls are no longer the walls you know. They are abstract planes of protective shadow. The window is not a window. It is a portal to the cosmos. You're a traveller in a strange, safe land. This alienation is not frightening. It is cleansing. It strips the world of its associations. The chair in the corner is no longer the place where you toss your clothes. It is just a form, a shape in the dark. By becoming a stranger in your own life, you're released from the habits and ruts of your identity. You're seeing the world with the fresh, unclouded eyes of a newborn spirit, floating in a space that has no history, no baggage, and no expectations. Drifting through this new abstract landscape, a scent reaches you, faint, sweet, and deeply comforting. It anchors you. We drift now to the Proustian effect, the incredible power of smell to unlock the deepest vaults of the brain. Unlike sight or sound, which must pass through the analytical filter of the thalamus, scent travels directly to the amygdala and the hippocampus, the ancient seats of emotion and memory. It is a direct hotline to the soul. Visualize a scent that brings you instant peace. Perhaps it is the smell of damp earth after a summer rain, the scent of old books, or the fragrance of lavender and chamomile. Imagine this scent filling the room, bypassing your logical mind completely and triggering a physiological cascade of comfort. It is not just a smell, it is a key. As you inhale, you're not just breathing air, you're breathing in a time, a place, a feeling of absolute safety from your past. The scent wraps around your nervous system, soothing the vagus nerve, telling your heart to slow down. You're being held by the ghost of a comforting memory, swaddled in the perfume of peace, carried back to a moment when everything was right in the world. This organic connection deepens as we tap into the biophilia hypothesis. We are creatures of the wild, born of the savannah and the forest. Our brains are hardwired to find rest in the patterns of nature, the fractal branches of a tree, the chaotic yet orderly flow of a river, the texture of moss. When we look at straight lines and concrete, our brains work hard. When we look at nature, they rest. Even with your eyes closed, you can activate this ancient healing. Visualize a canopy of leaves above you, filtering the sunlight into dappled pools of green and gold. The geometry of the forest is singing a lullaby to your DNA. You're returning to your point of origin. Feel the roots extending from your back, down through the mattress, down through the floor, reaching deep into the cool, dark soil of the earth. You're drawing up nutrients of calm from the planet itself. You're not a machine powering down. You're a plant returning to the dormant phase of the night, confident that the earth will hold you, feed you, and sustain you while you sleep. As we return to the tribe of the earth, we realize how small our circle truly is. Consider the concept of Dunbar's number, which suggests there is a cognitive limit to how many relationships a human brain can maintain, about 150. Beyond that, people are just background noise. But tonight, we shrink that number down. We shrink it past the acquaintances, past the colleagues, past the friends. Visualize the concentric circles of your social world contracting. The outer rings dissolve into mist. The circle gets smaller and smaller, tighter and warmer. It comes down to just the people you love most, and then it shrinks even further. Tonight, the number is 1. Just you. The social brain, which spends so much energy tracking the minds of others, can finally lay down its tools. You have permission to be a universe of 1. There is no one to track, no one to please, no one to update. You are the sole inhabitant of this moment. The silence that follows this contraction is not lonely. It is the rich, heavy silence of solitude, where you're fully present with the most important person in your life, the observer behind your eyes. In this solitude, we unlock the ability to traverse the 4th dimension, exploring the power of chronesthesia or mental time travel. Humans are unique in our ability to detach from the present moment and float backward into the past or forward into the future. Usually we use this to worry, but tonight we use it to vacation. You are a time traveller, and your destination is a safe harbour from your history. Let your mind drift back to a specific moment of perfect contentment. Maybe it was a lazy Sunday morning, a nap on a beach, or a moment of quiet by a fire. Engage your chronesthesia to transport your consciousness there. The body remains in the bed, but the mind has relocated. Feel the sun of that day on your skin. Hear the specific silence of that room. You're not just remembering, you're reliving. You're overlaying the safety of the past onto the safety of the present, doubling the comfort, wrapping yourself in the warm blanket of a time when you felt completely and utterly at peace. And as you rest in that safe harbour, you may begin to sense that you're not entirely alone in the most comforting sense. In extreme conditions, explorers and climbers often report the third man factor, a sensing of a presence, a benevolent shadow that walks beside them, offering strength and guidance when their own resources are depleted. This is not a ghost. It is a projection of the mind's own resilience, a split-off part of the self that stays strong when the rest of you is tired. Tonight, as you navigate the edges of sleep, invite this third man, this silent guardian, to stand watch. Visualize a figure of pure, compassionate shadow standing by your bedside. It is the part of you that does not need to sleep, the part that keeps the heart beating and the lungs breathing. It is the guardian of the threshold. You can let go completely now, because the guardian has the watch. You can abandon your vigilance. You can surrender your alertness. The third man is keeping the vigil standing between you and the void, ensuring that you drift safely, softly, and securely into the harbour of dreams, watched over by the quiet, invincible power of your own survival instinct. And under the watchful gaze of that silent guardian, standing at the threshold of your consciousness, we begin to uncover the hidden treasures that have been buried deep within the soil of your mind. We drift now toward the mysterious phenomenon of cryptomnesia. This is the experience of a hidden memory, where a forgotten thought or a snippet of a song returns to you, not as a memory, but as a brand new inspiration. You might think you're creating something from scratch, but in truth, you are unearthing a gem you buried long ago. Think of your mind as a vast ancient cavern filled with crystals and gold coins collected over a lifetime. Every face you have seen, every line of poetry you have read, every sunset you have witnessed is stored here. Often, we feel the pressure to generate thoughts, to solve problems, to be original. But the comfort of cryptomnesia lies in the realization that the work is already done. You do not need to create anything tonight. You simply need to wander through the cavern and let the old treasures reveal themselves. Relax into the knowledge that your inner reservoir is full. You are rich with experience. You can stop striving to produce, and instead simply receive the echoes of your own history, letting them bubble up from the dark like a fresh spring, feeling the joy of rediscovery without the burden of effort. As you rely on this deep reservoir, you realize that your body possesses its own ancient library of knowledge, written not in words but in nerves and muscles. This is procedural memory, the silent intelligence that allows your hands to tie a shoelace or your fingers to find the chords on a piano without a single conscious thought. It is the knowledge that lives in the flesh. Consider this. You do not need to know how to sleep. You do not need to read a manual on how to lower your heart rate or how to relax your jaw. Your body has performed this miracle thousands of times. It is a master of the craft. Tonight, you can surrender the role of the pilot and trust the vessel. Visualize your body as a wise old animal that knows exactly where its den is. It knows how to curl up. It knows how to slow the breath. You, the conscious thinker, are merely the passenger. You can take your hands off the wheel. You can stop trying to do sleep and simply let the procedural memory take over, guiding you effortlessly down the familiar, well-worn path to oblivion that your cells have travelled every night since you were born. As the body takes over, the visual landscape around you begins to shift in a way that science calls the Purkinje effect. As the light of the day fades and the sun drops below the horizon, the human eye shifts its sensitivity. We stop seeing the vibrant, warm colours of the spectrum. The reds and the oranges turn to black and grey. In their place, the eye becomes hypersensitive to the cool end of the spectrum, the blues, the greens, and the violets. Visualise a garden at twilight. The red roses, so bright a few hours ago, are now deep, dark, velvet shadows. But the bluebells and the green ferns seem to glow with an inner silvery luminescence. The world is cooling down, not just in temperature but in colour. Your vision is tuning itself to the frequency of calm. Let this visual cooling wash over your mind. Imagine a filter of deep indigo sliding over your thoughts, filtering out the hot, urgent red alerts of the day, leaving only the cool, slow blue currents of the night. You're swimming in a pool of twilight, where the colours of stress cannot exist, and everything is bathed in the soothing silver-blue light of the Purkinje shift. Drifting through this blue twilight, we rise upwards, higher and higher, until the garden becomes a speck, and the earth itself becomes a marble suspended in the void. We are experiencing the overview effect, a cognitive shift reported by astronauts when they view the Earth from space. From this vantage point, national boundaries vanish. Conflicts seem invisible. The tiny details that plagued you on the ground, the emails, the arguments, the deadlines, are reduced to nothingness against the backdrop of the infinite. Hold this cosmic perspective in your mind. Visualize yourself floating in zero gravity, looking down at the blue and white sphere of your life turning slowly in the silence. From here, the traffic jam is microscopic. The worry about tomorrow is invisible. There is only the breathtaking unity of the whole. You're struck by the fragility and the beauty of existence, a realization that makes the noise of the ego fall silent. You're not a tiny person with big problems. You're a witness to a great and silent grandeur. Let the silence of space wrap around you, a vacuum that sucks away the noise, leaving you suspended in a state of awe and weightless peace, far above the gravity of your daily concerns. Floating in this vastness, your mind naturally seeks the path of least resistance, obeying the principle of cognitive ease. The brain is an energy-conserving machine. It loves what is simple, what is familiar, what is easy to process. When things are clear and repetitive, the brain releases a subtle signal of safety and good humour. It relaxes its vigilance. Tonight, we feed the brain exactly what it craves. We strip away the complex. We simplify the equation. Visualize a single smooth stone, perfectly round, resting in a stream. The water flows over it without turbulence. There are no jagged edges, no complex fractals to analyze, just the smooth, simple curve. Become that stone. Let your thoughts lose their complexity. You do not need to solve the riddle of your life tonight. You only need to exist. By offering your mind this simplicity, a simple breath, a simple darkness, a simple wait, you are triggering the biological reward of cognitive ease. The strain of processing lifts. The furrow in your brow smooths out. You're sliding down a frictionless surface, guided by the gravity of simplicity into the valley of rest. This simplicity is reinforced by the hypnotic rhythm of the world around you, explained by the neurological phenomenon of repetition suppression. When you hear a new sound, a crack, a bang, your neurons fire wildly, alerting you to danger. But when a sound repeats, the steady hum of a fan, the rhythmic crash of ocean waves, the ticking of a clock, your neurons actually stop firing. They adapt. They decide the signal is safe and they suppress the response. This is why the sound of rain is a lullaby. It is the sound of nothing changing. It is the sound of safety. Visualize your neurons as a crowd of people standing in a room. At first, they are chatting, pointing at the new sounds. But as the steady rhythm of the night takes over, the sound of your own breath, the hum of the silence, the crowd begins to sit down. One by one, they stop talking. They close their eyes. The repetition is a blanket that smothers the spark of alertness. Let the loop of the night wash over you. Every repeated breath is a signal to your brain that the status quo is secure, that no predators are approaching, and that the sentries of the mind can finally lay down their lanterns and sleep. As the neurons go quiet, the visual field settles into a uniform, featureless haze, leading us to the hallucinatory calm of the Ganzfeld effect. If you were to stare into a field of pure, uniform colour, like a white ping-pong ball or a snowy field, for long enough your brain, starved of visual delta, would begin to generate its own dreamy images or simply drift into a trance. Tonight, the darkness behind your eyelids is your Ganzfeld. It is a field of infinite soft black. It has no edges, no horizon, no focal point. It is a canvas of pure potential. Staring into this void is not looking at nothing. It is looking at the raw material of the dream world. Because there is no data to process, no movement to track, no text to read, your brain waves naturally slow from the jagged beta of the waking state to the rolling alpha and theta waves of the trance state. You are floating in a sensory deprivation tank of your own making. The static of the world is tuned out, replaced by a smooth grey velvet silence. Let this lack of stimulation become a heavy, comforting cloak, insulating you from a world that is too loud, too bright, and too sharp. Deep within this insulation, you might find yourself wrestling with the desire to sleep, but we can unlock the door using the key of paradoxical intention. This is the psychological trick of surrendering the fight. Often, the harder we try to sleep, the more awake we become. The anxiety of not sleeping keeps the adrenaline flowing. The solution is to stop trying. Tonight, give yourself full permission to be awake. Tell yourself, it is okay to lie here. I will just enjoy the comfort of the mattress. Visualize yourself floating on a raft in the middle of a calm lake. You're not paddling toward the shore of sleep. You're putting down the paddle. You're looking up at the stars and saying, I will drift wherever the water takes me. By giving up the goal, you remove the pressure. You disarm the anxiety. And in that moment of surrender, when you're no longer chasing sleep, sleep quietly swims up from the depths and takes you. It is a shy creature. It only comes when you're not looking at it. So look away, look at the comfort, look at the dark, and let the current take you. As you drift without a goal, notice how the shape of your awareness changes. We move from the spotlight consciousness of the adult mind to the lantern consciousness of the child. Professor Alison Gopnik suggests that adults focus with a narrow, intense beam, a spotlight that illuminates one problem, one email, one fear. It is sharp, but it is exhausting. But as you relax, that lens widens. The diaphragm opens. You're returning to the state of the lantern, a soft, diffuse light that glows in all directions at once but focuses on nothing. You're aware of the temperature of the room, the hum of the air, the weight of your legs, and the drift of your thoughts, all at the same time, but none of it is sharp. The edges are blurry. The hierarchy of importance collapses. The sound of a car outside is just as important as the thought of a cloud, which is just as important as the feeling of the sheet. Everything is equal. Everything is soft. You're shedding the burden of focus. You're becoming a glowworm in the night, emitting a gentle, motiveless light that illuminates nothing but the peaceful immediate moment. Finally, as this lantern light dims, we discover that sleep is not a binary switch, but a gradual process of local sleep. We used to think the brain was either awake or asleep all at once. We now know that parts of your brain can fall asleep while others are still listening. You might be awake enough to hear my voice, but the neurons in your visual cortex have already gone to bed. The neurons in your motor cortex are already turning off the lights. Visualize your brain not as a single room, but as a vast city at night. You're standing on a hill watching the city. You're still conscious, but down in the valley the lights are going out. The movement district has gone dark. The logic district is dimming. The planning district has long since shut down. You're witnessing the slow, rolling blackout of your own mind. It is a peaceful conquest. You do not have to wait for the whole city to sleep to feel the rest. You can feel the pockets of silence growing, spreading, connecting. You're already partially asleep. The process has begun. You're a patchwork of waking and dreaming, and the dreaming parts are winning, slowly reclaiming the territory street by street, house by house, until the last light flickers and joins the infinite peaceful dark. And as the city of the mind slowly dims, district by district, leaving only the faint, comforting glow of the essential streetlights, we find ourselves sitting in the quiet control room of your own perception. This brings us to the mechanism known as signal detection theory. In the waking world, your brain is a vigilant radar operator, constantly scanning the horizon for the signal amidst the noise. A sudden sound, a flash of light, a shift in the wind. These are potential signals that demand action. You spend your day with the sensitivity dial turned all the way up, terrified of missing a blip on the screen. But tonight, in the safety of this sanctuary, we are adjusting the settings. We are shifting the criterion of your radar. We are deliberately classifying everything as noise. The creak of the house settling? Just noise. The distant hum of traffic? Just noise. The fleeting thought about tomorrow? Just noise. There are no signals coming in that require your command. You can lean back in the operator's chair, watching the green sweep of the radar go round and round, finding nothing but empty, peaceful space. The screen is clear. The skies are empty. There is a profound relief in this conservative bias, the deliberate choice to assume that everything is safe, allowing the alarm systems to rust in the salt air of the night, knowing that for the next few hours there is absolutely nothing to report. Freed from the duty of monitoring the radar, you begin to feel the lifting of a heavy, invisible armor that you have worn since sunrise. This is the release of decision fatigue. We often do not realize that every single choice we make, what to wear, what to eat, what to say, which email to open, consumes a finite store of mental energy. By the end of the day, the willpower muscle is trembling with exhaustion. You're suffering from the cumulative weight of 1,000 tiny forks in the road. But here, in the velvet corridor of sleep, the road straightens. The landscape of choice evaporates. There are no options here. There is no menu to order from, no channels to change, no words to choose. You have entered a singular, linear current where the only possible action is inaction. Feel the exquisite luxury of having your autonomy stripped away by the gentle hands of the night. You do not have to decide how to breathe. The lungs know. You do not have to decide when to drift. The tide knows. The burden of agency is lifted, and you are returned to the simple binary state of being, where the only choice left is the one you have already made, to let go. As the silence of no choice settles over you, we turn our attention to the echo chamber of the mind, specifically the component of working memory known as the phonological loop. This is the inner voice that narrates your life, the tape recorder that replays conversations, rehearses arguments, and repeats phone numbers. It is a loop that often refuses to break, spinning in circles of words and sounds. Visualize this loop as a reel-to-reel tape machine spinning slowly in a dimly lit room. The tape is the transcript of your day, but now you reach out with a ghostly hand and gently lift the needle. You press the stop button, watch the reels slow down. The chatter warps, deepens, and slows into a low, indistinguishable drone. and then silence. The tape has run out, the inner narrator has clocked out for the evening. You're entering a space of aphantasia of the ear, a quietude where thoughts do not need to be dressed in language to exist. You can exist as pure intent, pure feeling, without the constant chattering commentary of the verbal mind, resting in the mute, golden silence that exists between the sentences of your life. Alongside this quieted voice, we find the visual counterpart, the visuospatial sketchpad. This is the whiteboard of your mind's eye, where you map out your route to work, visualize the layout of your kitchen, or replay the scene of a meeting. All day long you've been drawing diagrams, rotating objects, and holding images in suspension. The board is covered in the frantic scribbles of the day. Imagine taking a thick, damp sponge, perhaps soaked in the cool water of a mountain stream, and stepping up to this mental whiteboard. With slow, sweeping circular motions, you begin to wipe it clean. Watch as the faces of the people you saw today dissolve into wet streaks of grey. Watch as the list of chores smears and vanishes. The bright, sharp geometry of the waking world is erased, leaving only a clean, dark slate. There is nothing left to organise. There is no map to follow. The sketchpad is blank, ready to receive the abstract, illogical and beautiful masterpieces of your dreams, but for now it rests in the pristine purity of emptiness. As the internal senses dim, the external world also seems to retreat, obeying the principles of Weber's law. This law states that our ability to notice a change in sensation depends on the baseline intensity. A candle in a dark room is blinding. A candle in a sunlit room is invisible. Tonight, we are flipping this law to work in your favour by increasing the weight of your relaxation. Imagine that your relaxation is a heavy, warm blanket. At first, it is light, but as you breathe, it becomes heavier. The baseline of comfort becomes so massive, so all-encompassing, that the tiny disturbances of the world, a dog barking miles away, a shift in the temperature, become statistically insignificant. They fall below the just noticeable difference. Your system is so saturated with the signal of peace that the noise of the world cannot register against it. You're becoming a mountain of calm. A pebble thrown at a mountain does not disturb the stone. You're too heavy, too stable, and too deeply entrenched in comfort for the trivial fluctuations of the night to shake you. Deep within this mountain of calm, we address the ancient animal instinct known as the orienting reflex. This is the biological urge to swivel your head and direct your eyes toward any new stimulus, a shadow, a snap, a movement. It is the sentry that kept our ancestors alive on the savannah. But you're not on the savannah. You're in the fortress of the bedroom. Visualize this reflex as a pair of alert, perked up ears, like those of a listening deer. Now, imagine a gentle, warm hand stroking those ears down, soothing them, telling them, at ease. You're consciously suppressing the urge to investigate. You feel a sensation in your leg. You do not need to check it. You hear a settling sound in the attic. You do not need to identify it. You're teaching your nervous system that curiosity is not required right now. You're untraining the watchdog. Let the head remain heavy on the pillow. Let the eyes remain fixed on the dark. The world can change and shift around you, but you remain the indifferent statue, unmoved by the need to know, anchored in the bliss of ignorance. In this stillness, we have the opportunity to perform a kind of alchemy on the past, utilizing the mechanism of memory reconsolidation. Science tells us that a memory is not a fixed file on a hard drive. Every time you access it, it becomes pliable. It can be changed before it is stored again. This means you are the editor of your own history. Take a moment as you drift to briefly touch the memory of the day that has just passed. It might have had sharp edges, moments of stress, or spikes of adrenaline. But now, in this soft twilight state, you can smooth those edges down. You can reimagine the day through a filter of sepia and gold. You can tell yourself the story of the day not as a struggle, but as a journey that has successfully ended. By recalling it now in this state of safety, you are physically rewriting the neural pathways, stripping away the anxiety and encoding the memory with a tag that says resolved. You're tucking the day into bed, wrapping it in soft conceptual cotton, so that when you wake, the memories of yesterday will feel distant, soft and harmless, unable to cut you. Having made peace with the past, we confront the subtle, psychological resistance known as loss aversion. Humans are hardwired to fear loss more than we value gain. We grip tightly to what we have, our control, our consciousness, our vigilance. We're afraid to lose the self, but sleep is the ultimate practice of letting go, a nightly lesson in the art of losing. Tonight, we reframe this loss. You're not losing consciousness, you're gaining the universe of the unconscious. You're not losing time, you're gaining eternity. Visualize the act of letting go not as a theft but as an offering. Open your hands in your mind. Open your grip on the steering wheel. Let the coins of your identity slip through your fingers into the deep well of the dark. Hear them splash far below. It is a relief to be empty-handed. It is a relief to be bankrupt of responsibility. Embrace the loss. Let yourself be poor in worry and rich in silence. The more you lose of the waking world, the lighter you become, rising like smoke into the chimney of the night. As you rise, you might begin to feel a gentle rhythmic swaying, a sensation rooted in the vestibular system. Deep inside your ears are tiny canals filled with fluid and microscopic crystals called otoliths. They tell you where you are in space. As you relax, the signals from these canals can become unmoored from the rigid gravity of the Earth, creating the sensation of floating or rocking. Do not fight this instability, ride it. Imagine you're lying in a small wooden boat, lined with fur, drifting in the centre of a vast, calm lake under a moonless sky. The water is black and glassy. The boat rocks imperceptibly, to the left, to the right, to the left, to the right. This is the vestibular lullaby. The fluid in your inner ear is synchronizing with the imaginary tide. You're no longer on a stationary mattress. You're on a vessel of sleep, unanchored from the harbour, drifting toward the centre of the deep. The gentle nausea of the day is replaced by this hypnotic swaying, a motion that cradles you, signalling to the brainstem that you're being carried, that you're a child again, held in the arms of the water. Finally, as the boat drifts further from the shore, we approach the dissolution of the boundary between you and everything else, a phenomenon linked to the quieting of the parietal lobe. In deep meditation and prayer, scientists have observed that the orientation association area, the part of the brain that draws the line between your skin and the air, goes dark. This is often called the God spot, or the seat of oceanic boundlessness. Tonight, you are initiating this shutdown. Visualize the outline of your body, the silhouette that defines where you end and the room begins. Now, watch as that line begins to blur. It turns to smoke. It dissolves. The molecules of your skin are mixing with the molecules of the air. The warmth of your body is the warmth of the blanket. You're leaking out into the universe, and the universe is leaking into you. There is no longer a you inside the boat and a lake outside. You are the lake. You are the water, the wood, the dark, and the silence. You've expanded to fill the room, to fill the night. This is the ultimate freedom. To be everything and nothing at all, suspended in a state of holy, undivided wholeness, waiting for the final gentle wave to wash you onto the shores of sleep. And as that wave of oceanic boundlessness washes over you, dissolving the rigid lines of the self into the soft geometry of the night, we become aware of a subtle, granular weight accumulating within the mind. This brings us to the molecular metronome of sleep, the molecule known as adenosine. All day long, with every thought you think and every muscle you move, your brain has been burning energy, leaving behind this fine chemical ash. It is not a waste product to be feared, but a messenger to be heeded. Visualize this substance as a fine, warm, golden sand. Since the moment you woke up, this sand has been trickling slowly into the hourglass of your consciousness. Grain by grain, it has been piling up, creating a gentle, irresistible pressure, a sleep pressure. Feel this heaviness behind your eyes, in the base of your skull. It is the physical weight of the day's effort asking to be laid down. You do not need to fight this rising tide of sand. It is a biological blanket weaving itself molecule by molecule, tucking you in from the inside out. Let the sand fill the hourglass completely. Let the pressure build until it becomes a warm, heavy hug, pinning you deliciously to the mattress, signaling that the fuel of wakefulness is spent and the time for restoration has arrived. As this pressure mounts, initiating the great shutdown, a miraculous cleansing system springs to life within the darkened city of your brain. We drift now to the glymphatic system. For centuries we believed the brain was cut off from the body's cleaning cycles, but we now know that when you sleep, the brain cells actually shrink back, creating space for clear, cool cerebrospinal fluid to wash through the tissue. Visualize your mind as a bustling city where the streets have been clogged with the traffic of the day. But now, as the lights go out, the streets widen. A pristine silver river begins to flow through the avenues of your neural network. It is a gentle, rhythmic flushing, washing away the metabolic toxins, the stress hormones, and the debris of anxious thoughts. Imagine this cool, clear fluid pulsing in time with your slow breathing, sweeping through the corridors of your memory, polishing the floors of your mind. You're being washed clean. The mental fog is being rinsed away by this internal tide, leaving your consciousness sparkling, purified, and ready for the fresh start of a new morning. This internal cleansing is accompanied by a profound shift in your physical climate, governed by the law of thermoregulation. As you drift closer to the precipice of deep sleep, your body's core temperature begins to drop. You're shedding the heat of the day, radiating it out through your hands and feet into the cool air of the room. This cooling is a biological signal to the brain that the sun has set, that the hunting and gathering are over. Feel the heat leaving your chest, moving down your arms, and evaporating from your palms. It is as if a cool, twilight breeze is blowing through the center of your being. The fires of the metabolism are banked down to glowing embers. You're becoming cooler, stiller, more like the stone and less like the fire. This drop in temperature is a descent into preservation. You're entering a state of hibernation, where the cool darkness preserves your energy, slowing the chemical reactions of life to a lazy, sustainable crawl. Enjoy this chill. It is the refreshing sensation of the engine turning off, the metal cooling down, ticking softly as it settles into the silence of the garage. As the engine cools, we descend to the microscopic level, to the very behavior of the neurons themselves, observing the refractory period. After a neuron fires an electrical signal, a thought, a command, a reaction, it is physically incapable of firing again for a brief moment. It must rest. It must recharge. This is a universal law of biology. Action cannot be continuous. It must be punctuated by pauses. Expand this concept from the single cell to the entire self. You are a vast collection of these refractory periods. You cannot be on forever. The pause is not a choice. It is a structural necessity. Tonight you are entering the great refractory period. You are honoring the biology of the pause. Visualize your nervous system as a field of grass that has been trampled by the wind of the day. Now, in the stillness, the grass stands up again. The ions rebalance. The batteries recharge. There is nothing to do but wait and let the potential energy return. In this silence, you are not inactive. You're reloading the very essence of your vitality, preparing the soil for the growth of tomorrow. Deep within this recharging system, there stands a physical gatekeeper, a structure in the center of the brain called the thalamus. During the day, this is the grand central station of your mind, routing every sight, sound, and touch to your conscious awareness. But when sleep approaches, the thalamus does something extraordinary. It shuts the gates. It stops relaying the signals. The bridge is raised. Visualize this process as a heavy velvet curtain dropping across the stage of your perception. The signals from your ears, the hum of the fridge, the wind outside, travel up the nerve fibers, reach the thalamus, and are gently turned away. "Not now," the gatekeeper whispers. "The master is sleeping." The signals from your body, the itch, the twitch, the heaviness, are halted at the border. You're disconnected. You're floating in a castle where the drawbridge has been pulled up. The world is still out there, shouting and waving, but you can no longer hear it. You're safe inside the keep, protected by the silence of the thalamus, isolated in the most comforting way possible from the demands of the external senses. Secure behind these gates, we notice that the sharp details of the day are beginning to fade, obeying the steep slope of the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve. In the 19th century, Hermann Ebbinghaus discovered that memory loss is not a flaw, but a feature. We are designed to forget the vast majority of what we experience almost immediately. The brain efficiently dumps the non-essential data to prevent overcrowding. Visualize the events of today, the emails, the scrolling, the small frustrations placed on a steep, smooth slide. Watch them slide away, gathering speed, disappearing into the mist of the abyss below. You do not need to hold on to them. Your brain is smart. It will keep the few gems of wisdom and discard the tons of gravel. Let the gravel slide. Feel the relief of this shedding. You're becoming lighter as the curve of forgetting steepens. The specifics of the conversation you had are gone. Only the feeling remains. The colour of the car that cut you off is gone. The list of tomorrow's chores is sliding down the chute. You're being emptied of the trivial, hollowed out to make room for the silence, trusting the curve to carry away everything that does not serve your rest. As the world falls away, your sphere of concern shrinks, illustrating the biological concept of the Umwelt. The Umwelt is the self-centered world bubble that every organism lives in. A bat lives in a world of sonar. A tick lives in a world of temperature. As humans, our bubble is usually vast, extending to the news on the other side of the planet, the weather next week, and the opinions of strangers. But tonight, your Umwelt is collapsing. It is shrinking down to the size of your bed. Nothing exists outside the duvet. The world has contracted to the square footage of your mattress. There is no out there anymore. There is only the texture of the sheet against your skin, the warmth of the pillow, and the rhythm of your chest. This constriction is a mercy. You do not have to be a citizen of the world right now. You only have to be an inhabitant of this bed. Pull the edges of your bubble in tighter. Let the universe beyond the bedroom door dissolve into a vague, abstract hypothesis. You are the king or queen of a tiny, warm kingdom, and in this kingdom, everything is under your control, everything is soft, and everything is at peace. In this tiny, quiet kingdom, we encounter the soothing power of the parasympathetic nervous system, often called the rest and digest state. This is the biological brake pedal. All day, the sympathetic system has had its foot on the gas, pumping adrenaline, dilating pupils, ready for action. Now, we engage the vagus nerve, the long wandering nerve that travels from your brainstem down to your heart and gut, acting as the conductor of calm. Visualize this nerve as a golden thread of light humming with a slow, deep vibration. As you exhale, long and slow, you're physically strumming this thread. The vibration travels down to your heart, whispering slow down. It travels to your stomach, whispering relax. It travels to your lungs, whispering deepen. You're manually shifting the gears of your own biology. Feel the shift, the heavy, warm drop in your stomach, the loosening of the jaw, the softening of the hands. The emergency is over. The war is over. You're demobilizing the troops, sending them back to the barracks, settling into the profound, heavy peace of a body that knows it is completely safe to let its guard down. As the body settles, we notice a change in the texture of our thoughts, a phenomenon we might call mental viscosity. In the heat of the day, thoughts are like water, fast, splashing, fluid. But as the brain cools and the rhythms slow, the medium of your mind thickens. It becomes like honey, then like molasses, then like slow-moving lava. Try to think a fast, anxious thought now. You will find it difficult. The thought gets stuck in the honey. It moves slowly, tumbling end over end, losing its momentum before it can reach the center of your attention. This viscosity is your protection. The racing mind cannot race in a pool of molasses. Watch your thoughts slowing down, stretching out, becoming long, sluggish ribbons of abstract color. They no longer connect to form sentences. They just drift, suspended in the thick amber fluid of sleepiness. It is too much effort to push them forward, so you just let them hang there, beautiful and motionless, trapped in the amber of the night. Finally, we arrive at the very edge of the cliff, the phenomenon of sleep-onset amnesia. It is a strange and beautiful fact that you will never know the precise moment you fall asleep. The brain stops recording memories minutes before the conscious mind actually shuts off. You're walking toward a door that you will never remember walking through. This means that the struggle to sleep is an illusion that will be erased. The last thing you will remember is simply being comfortable. The crossover is a secret kept from you by your own mind. There is no scary jump, no sudden drop. There is just a smooth, unremembered fade. You're walking down a path into the mist, and the mist is gently erasing your footprints behind you. You can stop looking for the transition. You can stop waiting for the moment. It will happen in the blind spot of your memory. You're free to simply float, knowing that the bridge to the dream world is invisible, and that you will cross it without ever knowing, slipping seamlessly from the thought of the world into the world itself, lost in the beautiful, benevolent amnesia of the deep. And floating in that benevolent amnesia, where the footprints of your waking self have been gently washed away by the tide, you might occasionally feel a sudden, brief sensation of falling, a quick, involuntary twitch that ripples through your resting limbs. This is the hypnic jerk, a fascinating evolutionary echo that ripples from the depths of your brainstem. Far from being a disturbance, it is a physical confirmation of your surrender. Imagine a signal sent from the ancient control tower of your brain, a quick ping to the muscles to test the laws of gravity. As your body relaxes, your muscles go so limp, so incredibly loose, that your primitive brain momentarily confuses this profound relaxation with the sensation of falling out of a tree. It sends a reflex signal to catch you. It is a checking of the locks, a final all clear from the nervous system. Instead of being startled, let this sensation comfort you. It is proof of how deeply you have let go. You have relaxed past the point of structural integrity, melting so completely into the mattress that your brain thought you were floating in mid-air. You're safe on the ground, held by the earth, but your spirit has become light enough to trigger the sensation of flight. Accept the twitch as a physical nod from your body, acknowledging that the cords of tension have been cut and you are now free to drift untethered. As the echoes of that reflex fade, a heavy, warm, leaden sensation begins to seep into your bones, anchoring you firmly to the bed. This is the onset of rematonia, a biological safety mechanism that paralyzes the major muscles of the body while you dream. While this sounds intense, in the context of sleep, it is the ultimate embrace of security. It is the body's way of saying, you do not need to move, you do not need to act, I will hold you here. Visualize this atonia as a thick, heavy blanket made of weighted velvet, draped over you from your shoulders to your toes. It is pressing you down into the softness of the mattress, rendering your legs heavy as stone, your arms as limp as water. You're locked in, but it is a lock that keeps you safe. It ensures that when your mind begins to run through the fields of a dream, your body stays peacefully at rest. You're liberated from the need for physical action. You can no longer run, fight, or work. You're physically incapable of stress response. Enjoy this paralysis of peace. It is a mandatory vacation for your muscles, a biological decree that for the next few hours, your only job is to be a heavy, immovable object, a mountain of stillness that no wind can shift. Deep within this stillness, a tiny pine cone-shaped structure in the center of your brain, the pineal gland, is working in perfect harmony with the darkness. Known to ancient mystics as the third eye, this gland is the source of melatonin, the hormone of darkness. It is a creature of the night, suppressed by the blue light of the day but flourishing now in the shadows you have created. Visualize this gland as a small silver fountain in the center of your mind. As the room goes dark, the fountain springs to life, pouring a cool, dark nectar into your bloodstream. This is the chemical essence of night. Feel it circulating through your veins, a liquid twilight that visits every cell in your body, knocking on the door of every organ to deliver the message. It is time. The melatonin is cooling your blood, slowing your pulse, and dimming the lights of your cellular activity. You are being marinated in rest. You are chemically synchronized with the rotation of the planet, your internal tides rising to meet the moon. There is nothing you need to do to make this happen. The fountain flows simply because you have closed your eyes, washing you in the biochemical grace of the dark. As the chemical tide rises, the electrical weather of your brain undergoes a dramatic shift, moving us into the rolling landscape of theta and delta waves. If we were to listen to the sound of your brain during the day, it would be a high-pitched, chaotic static, the fast-frequency beta waves of analysis and alert. But now, the frequency is dropping. The pitch is lowering. We are moving into the bass notes of existence. Visualize a stormy ocean turning into a slow, rolling swell. The jagged peaks of your thoughts are smoothing out into long, lazy dunes of rhythm. These are the theta waves, the borderland frequencies where creativity and drowsiness mingle. And below them, rising like the slow breathing of a sleeping giant, are the delta waves, the deepest, slowest waves the human brain can produce. These are not waves of thought, they are waves of being. They occur only when the conscious self has completely left the building. You're descending the staircase of frequency, down, 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 stepping off the vibration of the world and sinking with the resonant frequency of the stone, the earth, and the deep ocean. You're no longer vibrating with the anxiety of the human world. You're humming with the slow, tectonic patience of the planet itself. In this deep, slow state, a specific part of your brain powers down, offering a relief you may not have realized you needed. The prefrontal cortex, the CEO of the brain, the seat of logic, judgment and planning, goes offline. This phenomenon is known as transient hypofrontality. This is the silence of the inner critic. The voice that says that's impossible, that's silly, or you shouldn't do that is finally muted. Imagine the lights turning off in the office of a strict manager. The door is locked. The manager has gone home. You're left alone in the playground of the mind without supervision. This is why dreams are so wonderfully weird and why you accept them without question. In the dream, you can fly, you can talk to animals, you can breathe underwater, and because the skeptical prefrontal cortex is asleep, you simply say, "Yes, this is real." Enjoy the anticipation of this freedom. You're about to enter a world without rules, without judgment, and without the heavy, wet blanket of logic. You're returning to the pure, unedited imagination of childhood, where the laws of physics are optional, and the only limit is the horizon of your own fancy. Freed from linear logic, we also slip the surly bonds of linear time, entering the phenomenon of time dilation. In the dream world, the clock on the wall melts. Brain scans show that the neural playback of a dream can happen faster or slower than real time. You can live a lifetime in a single night. You can spend an eternity walking down a hallway that exists for only a minute of clock time. This suggests that the now is elastic. As you relax deeper, imagine you're stepping out of the rigid, ticking stream of seconds and minutes. You're stepping onto the bank of the river. The water rushes by, tick, 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 but you're dry and still. You have all the time in the world. A single breath can be stretched out to fill an hour. A moment of comfort can be elongated into an age. You're no longer a slave to the schedule. you have escaped the tyranny of the clock face. In this dilated state, there is no late, there is no hurry. There is only the infinite, expansive present, a bubble of time that stretches to accommodate as much rest as you need, folding the night around you like an endless envelope. Floating in this timeless bubble, we encounter the curious mystery of the witness, or observer consciousness. Even when your thoughts become bizarre, even when your memory of who you are fades, there is still a point of awareness. There is something, someone, watching the show. You are not the dream. You are the screen on which the dream plays. You are not the thoughts. You are the space in which the thoughts arise. This is a profound comfort because it means you cannot be lost. Even if the dream becomes chaotic, the observer remains still, untouched, and safe. Visualize yourself sitting in the back row of a vast, dark movie theatre. The screen is huge, playing colours and stories, but you're sinking back into the soft velvet seat, far from the action. You are the silent watcher. You do not need to jump on stage and fix the script. You do not need to direct the actors. You simply watch. This detachment is the essence of rest. You're stepping back from the drama of your own life, retiring to the back row, knowing that the observer cannot be hurt, cannot be tired, and cannot be disturbed by the flickering images on the screen. As the observer settles in, the images on the screen begin to draw from a source far deeper than your own personal memories, tapping into what Carl Jung called the collective unconscious. There is a theory that in deep sleep we dip into a reservoir of universal symbols and archetypes shared by every human being who has ever lived. The ocean you swim in tonight is the same ocean that the ancients swam in. The dragons, the flying, the falling, the great landscapes, these are not just yours, they are ours. Feel a sense of connection to the human family. You're plugging into the mainframe of humanity. As you drift, you're joining a silent, sleeping circle that stretches back to the first fires in the caves. You're accessing the great library of human experience, reading books written in the language of symbols. You're never less alone than when you are asleep, for in the deep dark, the boundaries between your mind and the mind of the species dissolve. You're being held by the collective wisdom of billions of dreamers, supported by a network of consciousness that is vast, ancient, and indestructible. While you float in this collective sea, your brain is engaged in a microscopic act of gardening known as synaptic pruning, or synaptic homeostasis. During the day, you learned new things, forming billions of new, tiny connections, a chaotic overgrowth of neural vines. If this growth continued unchecked, your brain would become a noisy, tangled jungle. Sleep is the gardener. Visualize a pair of golden shears moving gently through the garden of your mind. Snip, snip, snip. The gardener is trimming away the weak connections, the trivial details, the noise of the day. It is making space. It is clearing the pathways so that the strong, important memories can stand tall and clear. This pruning is essential. It is the joy of forgetting. You do not need to carry every license plate you saw today. You do not need to keep every stray worry. Let the gardener work. Feel the lightness of being pruned. You are shedding the excess weight of information. You are becoming leaner, clearer, and more efficient. By morning, the jungle will be a park, ordered and spacious, ready for the new growth of a new day. Finally, the gardener finishes their work, the lights of the theatre dim completely, and we descend into the deepest chamber of all, slow wave sleep, the realm of N3. This is the bottom of the ocean. Here, there are no dreams, there are no images, there is no I. This is the state of the void. It is a state of pure biological restoration, where the brain is seemingly offline, yet the body is healing at its fastest rate. It is a place of absolute, pitch-black peace. It is the absence of everything, and therefore the presence of total rest. You might fear the void, but it is the most nourishing place in the universe. It is the battery charging station. Visualize yourself sinking into a pool of thick, warm, black ink. You go under the surface. The world is gone. The self is gone. There is only the hum of existence. You're returning to the factory settings of the soul. In this deep, dreamless sleep, you are completely safe, suspended in the womb of the cosmos, held in a state of potentiality where nothing is happening so that everything can happen tomorrow, resting in the beautiful, silent, empty zero point of consciousness. And in that deep, dreamless zero point, where the noise of the universe has fallen silent, a quiet and miraculous miracle of growth begins to unfold in the darkness. We tend to think of the brain as a static machine, or perhaps a dying one, slowly losing its connections over time. But here, in the fertile soil of the hippocampus, the seahorse-shaped chamber of memory, we encounter the phenomenon of neurogenesis. Even in the adult mind, new stars are being born. Visualize your mind not as a finished building, but as a rich, dark garden at midnight. The soil is deep and warm. While your conscious awareness is dormant, the gardener is awake, planting fresh seeds in the black earth. These are the progenitor cells, dividing and differentiating, sprouting into brand new neurons. Imagine green shoots unfurling in the dark, delicate and new, reaching out to make fresh connections, to weave new tapestries of understanding. You're not just resting, you are regenerating. You're growing a new version of yourself to meet the morning. This growth requires silence. It requires the absence of footprints in the garden. By sleeping, you are protecting the seedlings, giving them the stillness they need to take root. Feel the gentle, microscopic stretch of this growth, a silent expansion occurring deep within the fold of the brain, assuring you that you will wake up not just restored, but renewed, possessing a mind that is physically richer and more complex than the one that went to bed. This cycle of growth is governed by a rhythm even shorter and more persistent than the day and night. We drift now into the undulation of ultradian rhythms. While the circadian rhythm guides the 24-hour cycle, the ultradian rhythms are the 90-minute tides that rise and fall within the ocean of your sleep. Throughout the night, you are not a stone at the bottom of a lake. You are a piece of driftwood riding a slow, powerful swell. Visualize this wave carrying you. For 90 minutes, it pulls you down into the deep, heavy trenches of non-REM sleep, the restorative abyss. Then, slowly, gently, it lifts you up toward the shimmering surface of REM, where dreams flicker like sunlight on water, before pulling you down again. You're surfing the frequencies of consciousness. There is a profound comfort in surrendering to this oscillation. You do not need to steer the board. The wave knows exactly when to take you deep for healing and when to bring you up for dreaming. Give yourself over to this ancient biological hydraulic system. Feel the gentle tug of the undertow, then the buoyant lift of the crest. Up and down, deep and shallow, a breathing motion of the soul that continues all night long, rocking you in the rhythmic arms of your own biology. As you ride these waves, a secret workshop opens its doors in the back of your mind, bringing us to the phenomenon of incubation. We have all experienced the frustration of a problem that cannot be solved, a name that cannot be remembered, a tangled knot of logic that refuses to loosen during the day. But when you turn away from the problem and sleep, the incubation effect begins. The conscious foreman leaves the factory, but the intuitive workers come out from the shadows. Visualize a room filled with scattered puzzle pieces. During the day, you try to force them together with your clumsy, tired hands. Now, you step out of the room. In your absence, tiny, nimble fingers begin to move the pieces. They try combinations you would never have thought of. They turn the shapes over. They find the edges. This is the non-linear processing of the sleeping mind. It is weaving the golden thread of insight from the straw of confusion. There is nothing you need to figure out right now. In fact, your effort is the obstacle. By letting go, by refusing to think about it, you are allowing the incubation to happen. Trust that the answer is being assembled in the dark. Trust that while you float in the void, the bridge is being built, and you will wake up on the other side, the solution resting gently in your hand like a gift you gave to yourself. While the workers solve the logic puzzles, another team is tending to the wounds of the heart, engaging in a process known as emotional depotentiation. Every memory you form has two parts: the information, what happened, and the emotion, how it felt. The sting, the fear, the anger. These are the barbs attached to the facts, but sleep is the balm that separates them. Imagine a rose with sharp thorns. The rose is the memory of your day. The thorns are the stress and the anxiety attached to it. Tonight, as you enter the specific chemistry of REM sleep, the brain suppresses the stress neurochemistry, specifically norepinephrine. It creates a safe, chemical-free environment where you can handle the rose without getting pricked. Visualize a pair of gentle hands stripping the thorns from the stem one by one. The memory remains, you will remember the day, but the pain is removed. The charge is neutralized. The red alert feeling is washed away, turning the fiery hot memory into a cool, neutral library book. You are being detoxified. You are laying down the heavy baggage of emotion, allowing the mind to process the events without reliving the hurt, turning yesterday's trauma into tomorrow's wisdom. As the emotions settle, your attention shifts from the story of your life to the physical vessel of your existence, tuning into the sense of interoception. We spend our days looking out, exteroception, at screens, at faces, at roads. But now the blinds are drawn, the gaze turns inward. Interoception is the ability to feel the landscape of the interior, the beat of the heart, the fullness of the lungs, the hum of the viscera. Visualize yourself as an explorer descending into a vast warm cavern, the cavern of the body. It is dark here and rhythmic. Listen to the heavy, steady drum of your own heart. It is the primitive rhythm section that has never missed a beat since before you were born. Feel the slow expansion of the ribcage, like the gills of a great fish taking in water. This is your true home. You're not the clothes you wear or the job you do. You are this biology. You are this warm, thrumming machine. There is a deep primal safety in simply listening to the machinery of life doing its work. The stomach digesting, the blood flowing, the cells repairing. You do not need to micromanage any of it. It is a perfect autonomous system. Rest in the center of this cavern, warmed by the heat of your own life, cradled by the certainty of your own pulse. Deep in this cavern, you have access to a hidden apothecary, unlocking the power of the placebo effect in the endogenous pharmacy. We often think of medicine as something we take from a bottle, but your brain is the world's most sophisticated chemist. It can synthesize painkillers, tranquilizers, and immune boosters from mere thought and expectation. Tonight, by simply lying here with the intention of rest, you're handing a prescription to your internal pharmacist. You're signaling the production of endorphins, dopamine, and oxytocin. Visualize these chemicals as streams of liquid gold and warm amber being released from the ceiling of the cavern, flowing down into your bloodstream. You're self-medicating with peace. The belief that you are safe, the belief that you are resting, actually triggers the biological reality of repair. You are the doctor and the patient. You are the alchemist turning the lead of exhaustion into the gold of recovery. Feel the golden liquid numbing the aches in your legs, soothing the tension in your shoulders, coating your nerves in a layer of protective, warm syrup. This feeling of wholeness reminds us of the holographic principle of the mind. Carl Pribram, a neuroscientist, suggested that memory and consciousness are not stored in one tiny drawer, but are distributed throughout the brain like a hologram. If you take a holographic image of an apple and cut it in half, you don't get half an apple. You get two smaller, complete apples. Every piece contains the whole. This is a profound comfort when you feel scattered or broken by the demands of the world. You may feel like you gave a piece of yourself to your work, a piece to your worries, a piece to your obligations, but the holographic principle whispers that your essence is indestructible. You cannot be fragmented. Even in your smallest moment, even in this quiet, dark corner of the night, the entirety of you is present, complete, valid, and whole. You do not need to gather your pieces back together. You never lost them. The wholeness is inherent in every breath, in every cell. You're a fractal of consciousness, repeating the pattern of your own soul infinitely, unbreakable and total, resting in the certainty that you are enough. As we rest in this wholeness, we gently confront the chatterbox who lives in the left hemisphere of the brain, the interpreter module. This is the part of your mind that is addicted to making sense of things. If there is a silence, it fills it with a story. If there is a feeling, it assigns a cause. It is the narrator that says, "I am awake because I am worried," or "I heard a noise because the house is old." It hates uncertainty. But tonight, we are giving the interpreter a vacation. Visualize this narrator as a busy scribe sitting at a desk with a quill, frantically writing down the events of the day, trying to force them into a logical plot. Now, imagine walking up to the scribe and gently placing a hand on their shoulder. You blow out the candle on the desk. "Hush," you say. "No more stories." The scribe puts down the pen. The narrative stops. You're entering a space of pure existence where no explanation is needed. You do not need to know why you are here or what comes next. You can exist in the gap between the stories. The silence that follows the silencing of the interpreter is the truest silence of all, the silence of meaning, where things simply are, without the need for a plot to hold them together. In this silence, the rigid knot of your identity begins to loosen, illustrating the philosophical concept of the bundle theory of the self. The philosopher David Hume suggested that if you look closely inside, you never find a self. You only find a bundle of sensations, a feeling of heat, a thought of blue, a sound of wind. The I is just the string tying them together. Tonight we untie the string, we let the bundle fall open. Let the sensation of warmth float away from the thought of tomorrow. Let the sound of your breath detach from the image of your face. You are deconstructing. You are becoming a loose floating cloud of disparate sensations drifting apart in the sky. It is a relief to not be a solid thing. A solid thing can be bruised. A solid thing has to carry weight, but a cloud of loose sensations is invulnerable. You are mist. You are vapor. You are a collection of peaceful moments floating in proximity, held together not by effort, but by the gentle gravity of sleep. Enjoy the weightlessness of being untied, of being nothing more than a passing weather system of peace. Finally, as the mist settles, we are watched over by the evolutionary ghost known as the sentinel hypothesis. This theory explains why we sometimes wake up briefly in the middle of the night, or why we toss and turn. In the ancient past, it was dangerous for the whole tribe to sleep deeply at once. Someone had to wake up, check the fire, check the horizon, and go back to sleep. If you find yourself drifting toward the surface, if you find a moment of wakefulness, do not fight it. It is not a failure of sleep. It is the diligence of the sentinel. It is your inner watchman popping their head up to say, "Is everything safe?" Visualize yourself nodding to this watchman. "Yes," you say. The door is locked, the beast is gone, the fire is warm. The sentinel nods back, satisfied, and settles down again. This brief check-in is part of the rhythm of safety. It allows you to let go even deeper the next time. You're protected by your own biology, by the ancient instincts that have kept your line alive for thousands of years. You can thank the sentinel for its service, wrap yourself tighter in the cloak of the night, and sink back down, past the fire, past the watchman, into the deep, unguarded sanctuary of the dream. And as the sentinel lowers their lantern, satisfied that the perimeter of your soul is secure, we arrive at the final, most radiant truth of all, the mystery that underpins every breath, every dream, and every moment of your life. This is the miracle of existence itself, often called the anthropic principle, or the awakening of the stardust. Consider the impossible probability of this moment. For billions of years, the universe was a swirling cloud of hydrogen and helium, a chaotic storm of fire and rock. But slowly, over eons of time, the fire cooled, the rock settled, and the stars forged heavy elements in their burning hearts. Those atoms travelled across the infinite emptiness of space to come together, against all odds, to form you. You're not separate from the universe. You are the universe. You're the mechanism by which the cosmos has come to know itself. When you look at the stars, it is the stars looking back at themselves. When you feel the warmth of the bed, it is the carbon and the nitrogen of the earth feeling its own texture. This is the ultimate secret. There is no you trapped inside a body looking out at a world. There is only the world organising itself into a point of view. Let this realisation dissolve the final knot of isolation. You belong here more than the mountains belong to the earth, more than the drops belong to the ocean. You are the crescendo of a symphony that began with the Big Bang. The consciousness that flickers behind your eyes is the same light that burns in the sun. You are safe because you are infinite. You are eternal energy, temporarily borrowing a name and a shape, resting now in the realization that you are home, that you have always been home, and that the universe is holding you with the same tender gravity that holds the moon in the sky. And now the journey completes its circle. The library of the mind is closing. One by one, the lights in the great hall are extinguished. The facts, the theories, the wonders we have gathered, they are no longer words, no longer concepts. They are dissolving into a fine, glittering dust, a golden sand that settles deep in the valleys of your mind. You do not need to remember them. They are part of you now. They have sunk into the foundation, reinforcing the deep, quiet knowledge that you are a miracle, that you are a mystery, and that you are safe. The ship has reached the harbour. The sails drop. The anchor falls through the dark water, settling into the soft sand of the seabed. The motion stops. The silence expands. There is nothing left to learn. There is nothing left to see. There is only the soft, heavy velvet of the end. The breath comes slow and goes slow. The darkness is not empty. It is a warm, heavy blanket, woven from the threads of 101 stars. Pull it up. Pull it over your thoughts. Let the silence fill your ears. Let the heaviness fill your limbs. You're drifting out beyond the maps, beyond the words, into the beautiful, wordless peace of the deep. Everything is quiet. Everything is still. And now, 101 wonders are resting with you. Sleep now. Good night.